So now I want to turn it over to somebody who is an expert in cloud security, has been in the field for decades. And when I say somebody's been in the field, not just for 1 decade, but longer, you know that you will want to listen to their experience and their stories and what they have to share. So I'm very proud to introduce Christina Morillo, or otherwise known as Divine Techie Girl on Twitter. She works at Microsoft and has a background in cloud technology, enterprise security, and identity engineering. But even more than her accolades, she is somebody who is willing to share the story of the struggles that she has been through as a professional in technology, and as somebody who has been figuring out how to bring her best and authentic self to the table, and how to be heard, and how to have a very successful career. So I'm very pleased to introduce Christina Morillo.
Hi, thank you. That was a really great introduction. I feel like I could just coast now, right? I don't have to do anything else. That's it, you did it. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, your sound is good.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. So who am I? I don't want to bore you with the, like typical, I've been in the industry for 35 years and I know it all. So I'm just going to tell you a couple of fun facts about myself. Yes, we'll get that out of the way. I've been in information security and technology for too long to count, over 22 years now. And I've worked at companies like Morgan Stanley. I am currently at Microsoft. I do things like I co-lead the New York City chapter of Women in Security and Privacy, which is a lot of fun. And as of this year, I have also added a podcast host to my resume. But a couple of fun facts about me is that I am a reformed sneakerhead. That means that I love sneakers, Jordans, but I'm reformed, so I'm not buying anymore. As of 2020, I guess, maybe. I am also proud and native New Yorker. This is why I have my little New York image here, because I am still, a New Yorker at heart and very, very dedicated to the city. And I'm also a dedicated member of the red lipstick and 90s bamboo earrings party, right? So outside of that, I'm also a mom, I'm a techie at heart, so I'm a lifelong learner. And I love mentoring and giving back to people. So let's see if I can go to the next slide. So because I was going to talk about authenticity today and the kind of subtopics that go along with that, I did a quick independent poll across LinkedIn and Twitter earlier this week, and the results were not surprising except for one point. So I wanted to know if, people on Twitter and on LinkedIn felt like they could be their authentic selves at work, right? And if not, why not? So while I didn't add the comments, I'll share a couple of comments with you. I got a lot of yeses on Twitter, and primarily the comments were from people that felt they could be their authentic selves because they were entrepreneurs, right? So they left the corporate industry, they decided to start their own businesses, they decided to just, forget about trying to be like someone else and do their own thing, which is commendable. But 48.2% of people said no, that they had to code switch. And we'll talk about that in a second. On LinkedIn, really high percentage of people that felt that they had to code switch, right, and couldn't be their authentic self. 56%, which I found not surprising, but it's still disappointing for me, right? So I'm going to share 2 definitions that I want you to keep in mind as I go through the rest of this talk. The first one is threat modeling, right? We all know what threat modeling is, especially if you work in the industry. But for those who don't know, threat modeling is pretty much a structured process which IT professionals use to identify potential security threats, vulnerabilities, and then, quantify the seriousness of each of these, and then prioritize techniques to mitigate these potential attacks, right? My second one is psychological safety. What is psychological safety? It's being able to show and employ your true self without fear of negative consequences based on your self-image, status or career, right? So in other words, feeling like you're accepted and respected within your current role, company, technology, or even community. So as I was looking and thinking about this talk, I was like, well, I need an image that describes or that really shows the difference between authenticity and code switching in real time. And I found this, which in an article that I shared in the resources tab, or excuse me, in the room. And I thought it was perfect, right? Like, here we go, the only president I acknowledge, and, you know, giving a handshake to a white man, no offense to my, you know, white brothers and sisters, but also giving the pound and the hug, you know, to Kevin Durant, right? Why does this happen? Why do folks of color, you know, why do folks that are other feel comfortable with folks that they feel comfortable with, and then are more traditional or more formal with folks that they do not? You know, it's a really good question, and I was thinking about it really deeply, and here's what I came up with. Code switching is pretty much us trying to protect our psychological safety, right? We're optimizing. When we code switch, we optimize for the comfort of others in exchange for fair treatment, for quality services, employment opportunities, career advancement, et cetera, et cetera. And why do we do this? Because there's so many negative stereotypes. You know, the last panel and Legina spoke about biases and, you know, biases, whether or not you are a person of color, whether or not you're a Black woman, a Black man, it doesn't matter. If you're other, there are going to be biases, right? And so we need to protect our psychological safety, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If we feel that we are at danger or we are in danger, we are going to code switch, right? Because we know that our true, authentic selves doesn't really work in the workplace, right? We will never get ahead. Again, doesn't apply to everyone, but I'm speaking from my experience and the experience of those that are closest to me within the industry that I've spoken to countless times, and, you know, from the experience of the folks who participated in this poll. And I want to talk to you about, what does bringing your whole self to work even mean, right? What does that mean? It means being comfortable with sharing your perspective, with sharing parts of your identity that may not be like everyone else, you know, may not be similar to everyone else. So you may not be a culture fit, but despite not being a culture fit, you feel safe with sharing who you are, with wearing your red lipstick, with wearing your door knockers, with wearing your Jordans, right? I always like to say that I'm in New, you know, I've always worked in New York City, and when I used to work downtown at Wall Street, I used to say there were two Christinas, right? The Christina that would, you know, get out on Wall Street and go to work, and then there was a Christina that would get out the train in Harlem, right? And would like relax. You know, I would walk out the subway station and I would relax, even though I was pretty much like in the middle of the hood where other people are like holding and gripping their bags, but I was relaxed, right? Because I knew that I felt among my people, and I felt like there were, you know, people who looked like me, and so that I could be myself. Did I feel that at work? No, I did not. So again, this can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but for me, it just means really being able to be myself, not minimize myself for the sake of others, or for the sake of others' comfort, or for the sake of culture fit, which is a term that, you know, we like to use a lot. So here's how I think about this, right? The way that I think about, and I'll use myself as an example, I think about this as human threat modeling. Like I mentioned before, we threat model to, you know, to keep abreast of different security threats and to mitigate. So using this threat model approach, I came up with this kind of framework, right? And we'll start with defining. What do? We go into an environment, a situation, and whether it's a conference or an employer, new role, new company, we define our requirements for psychological safety. What does this look like for me? Are they accepting of who I am? Do I feel like I have to fit in? So we start to define that early on. And this is an automatic process, right? We don't take a pencil and a paper. And then we move into the diagram kind of phase. And that's where we create a mental model of these conditions, right? In other words, you know, I, for example, create an internal understanding of my external reality, right? What does it look like, right? Do I have to kind of shift? Do I have to start code switching and shifting earlier in the process, right? Then I identify the threats in my environment, right? who gaslights me, who makes my day harder. You know, this can also be folks who have trouble communicating, right? Or who take things out of context because, you know, I don't know, maybe you are too spicy, or maybe you are an angry Black person, right? Because you're passionate about a specific topic, or, you know, you just have different, I don't know, you have like different diverse perspectives, and they feel attacked, right? So you look at who are these people? What are the threats, right? Once you identify those, you move into the mitigation stage, right? You find ways to mitigate these threats. And what I mean by that is you just think to yourself, or I think to myself, what do I have to do to get things done while maintaining my sanity, right? Like, it's not even about switching at this point. It's just like, what do I have to just get done so that I could just keep it moving, right? And then you move into the validation. Did my mitigation strategies work? Do they work, right? That's where the feedback comes in. You know, oh, are you willing to take feedback, right? That's where that comes in. If the feedback is negative, they're not working, right? If the feedback is positive, then yes, they're working. And then you start that life cycle all over again, right? And I don't know if this happens to you, but I know this happens to me. And I feel like as a woman of color, I threat model all day, every day, whether it's work-related threat modeling or human personal threat modeling. But this is a continuous process. Now, there's this one quote that I love from Dr. Maya Angelou. And before I get into that, I'm going to tell you a little story. There was one time where I got hired as managing an identity and access management program at this organization here in New York City. And, you know, it was a management position, and I was pretty much, you know, along sitting with the leader, you know, with the leadership team. And this one gentleman on the help desk, also a person of color, he thought, and I've told this story before, but there was a request that came into my attention, and he removed the request and reassigned it to himself. And when I asked him, hey, why did you remove that request? He said, well, because that request was too technical for you. It was very difficult for you. You know, you had to like log into a server or something silly like that. And, you know, at that point I had to say, listen, I have, you know, X amount of time in this field. I have X amount of time, X amount of years of experience. And I didn't get this job because I'm cute and because I can, you know, wear this suit and jacket well. I got this job because I'm technical and because I have the experience. I would appreciate it if you put that ticket or that request back in my inbox so that I can tend to it, right? So one of the things is, as we move towards our career, and you know, the panel spoke about it before, there are so many things that you have to do, but I want you to remember that at the end of the day, you know, people won't remember what you said, what you did. They won't remember how great your LinkedIn profile is. They won't remember how great your resume is, how many certifications or how many degrees you have. They won't remember that. They're going to remember how you made them feel. And that's not only positive, that's also negative. If you make people feel threatened, if your light is so bright that people are threatened by you, there is no amount of code switching in the world that will make your life easier, right? And I say all that to say that, you know, you're going to get to a point in your life that you reach a crossroads, and you will have to decide how much of yourself are you willing to sacrifice or slightly modify, right, for the sake of status, of career, of equity, of moving up, or, you know, just because you fear the negative consequences, right? It's exhausting. It's exhausting. I think, you know, I wanted to, you know, I really wanted for you to take away a couple of things today. And that is that it's too exhausting to be someone else. And I can't give you 5 tips today to walk away with to be your authentic self. I can't. You have to make that decision. What I can do is give you those questions, right? Allow you to start thinking about asking yourself these questions, allowing you to, you know, give you frameworks to threat model your day-to-day, right? And then come up or arrive at your decision, it's your personal journey. And you really have to think about these things. I will tell you that I've reached that stage, right? I reached the stage where I wear my hair curly proudly, and if you can't deal with it, you just then I'm just gonna have to leave. But again, it's a give and take, right? It's a give and take. And so these are some of the things that I really want you to take away from this conversation. And I know I wanted to, like, there's so much that I can say about this, so much. But one point that I will make, and I will echo the last panel, is that it is super important for you to create your brand outside of any company or any organization that you are a part of. And that is the one place where you can truly shine and show who you are through and through, right? That is where you can be the most authentic, right? And not get retaliated against, right? Or hopefully not get retaliated against. And if you get retaliated against, let me know. I'll take off my earrings and I'll go help you out. But no, I mean, yeah, it's pretty much that. Do you think you can be your authentic self at work? If you were to ask me this question today, I would tell you maybe. It depends. It depends. And why it depends is it really depends on how you do it, right? So wear your earrings, wear your red lipstick, take out a curl, and do it slowly. But like I said, when you get to that crossroads, when you reach that crossroads, that's where you're gonna have to really decide what is of value. So I leave you with that. Thank you so much, Sans, for the opportunity. This was a really great, this has been great this morning, and I hope to stick around for a little bit longer to answer any questions.